Moment here. So good to see that number ticking up. Love it. All right. Well, hello and welcome everyone to our latest Career Coach Series workshop. Today's workshop is called The Big Ask, where our guest speaker will talk about how to make important career requests that will garner results. Speaking of which, I'd like to introduce you to our featured speaker today, Diane Fenig. Diane brings more than 25 years of career development and management experience in a university environment to executive search and leadership development. She currently is an associate partner at Buffkin Baker. Diane has earned degrees from Marquette University, Miami University, and the University of South Carolina as foundations for her role as a career connector and educator. She serves as a guest blogger for the Society of Human Resource Management in the areas of recruitment, retention, and employee satisfaction. She also has enjoyed over a decade of work with the Business Management Leadership Institute, both as a facilitator and class lead. Diane, it's wonderful to have you here today. Please feel free to take it away.
All right. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate it. All right. Now I'm going to share a PowerPoint just because it just keeps everybody moving in the right directions, right? There we are from the beginning. Here we go. Nice full screen, please. There we are. The big ask, not the big. Oh, no, that's not what we're looking for. So the big ask, everyone has a question, a burning question that they're trying to figure out. How do I find the answers to? I find that asks are usually in two categories. One, it's about a job, or another, it's about a recommendation of someone to connect me to someone, to connect me to someone else. I find that there's two kind of categories of an ask. I'm going to start with a story of an example of what I don't want you to do, and then we're going to dig into what I do want you to think about doing. So once somebody lost their job, connected with me and said, all right, I need some help on doing all of this. And I said, all right, you got to start by doing some homework. You've got to tell me what are the organizations you're looking for. And so he proudly presented a group of 100 companies that he said, I want connections within this. And I said, okay, but don't ask me to tell you of these 100 who I should connect with. You should really know my background a little bit better and focus those asks on the ones that you think I've got a connection to, or within LinkedIn where you see my connections. And he goes, I don't have time for that. And I said, I know, but you're the one making the ask. Remember, you've got to show some effort on your part. So he didn't listen to my advice and instead sent this list, this generic request to hundreds of people saying, here's my top 100 organizations I'd like to connect with. How can you help? Ready, set, go. A couple weeks later, he said, that didn't work so well. I said, I'm not surprised. So again, you've got to focus on what's your question? What are you looking for? And in this case, he was just looking blindly for any connections to his top 100 organizations. But in addition to the organizations you're looking for, let's also think about the job titles and where do you find those. So it's not only organizations, it's also where are the jobs that you're looking for or the connection points you're looking for. When people find a new person to connect with or saying, oh my gosh, I think this person is the key to my success, you've got to step back and think, why should they connect with me? Where did I meet them? Or how can I start a conversation with them? So when someone's a brand new connection, you're unknown to them. How do you introduce yourself? Or how do you ask someone else to introduce you to them so that they can be a new connection and you can make that ask request of that person? So, but so often people just kind of throw out this huge net of people I want to connect with, and then nobody connects with them and they wonder what's going on. Or they say LinkedIn doesn't work. And I'm like, no, it does, but it works better if you kind of put context to connections. And again, figuring out why you want to connect with that person. No matter if it's a new connection or an old connection, you've got to do your homework. You've got to figure out why you want to connect and what you're asking for, and be really specific of what it is you're looking for from this person. People will help you, but they certainly will help you more if you can be very focused on what you'd like. If you can, and this takes a little bit of time, but when you get good at it, it seems a lot easier. Try to figure out who are the connections within LinkedIn that you share. So if we are a shared connection, like Tony and myself, if the two of us were already a shared connection, it's easier for me to make that connection to someone else because we're a shared connection. Or we're a second degree connection to my first. So figuring out within LinkedIn where your connections are, and maybe asking that person, asking Tony, who knows this person that I want to meet, to make an introduction for me. But in asking her to make an introduction, take the time to kind of set the stage as to why she should do this work and what I'm looking for from this connection. If I send all that to Tony and the work is done already, she's more apt to do something with it because all she's got to do is copy and paste and make that connection to me to someone else. And I like to do those connections through LinkedIn because it's very easy to do. If someone gives you a few minutes, please understand it is not an interview. It's an informational interview. If you get some time with someone and they say, I've got, half an hour on Tuesday morning, are you interested? And they say, let's do a Zoom meeting. Treat this as an informational interview. Be prepared, ask your questions, and then I kind of end it with asking them, how can I stay in touch with you? Ask them for some feedback of how can we stay connected? And they might say, let's stay connected quarterly. Send me some updates of what it is you're doing. And that might jog my memory. But when people say to me, and they say it all the time, when you see something good, call me. Well, what's good to you isn't good to the next. So that's always a hard thing for people. They say it with great ease, but it's hard for me to enact it because I hear about opportunities all the time, but everybody doesn't come top of mind because I haven't heard from them. But if you have a chance to do this informational interview and someone says, quarterly keep up with me, that's going to help you stay more top of mind to that person. Always thank anyone who's helped you with connections. So important. I can't say it enough. And in making connections, you always think of how do I lift another? How do I help another along? And making introductions, when sometimes people don't know how to ask you for that, you go ahead and say, would you like me to make that introduction? And people are like, yes, please. Okay, help people because not everyone knows how to ask you for this favor. And when you make that introduction, do it in a timely fashion and, so that people can get connected, but then you can walk away if you've made that connection. That it's up to the two of you to continue the conversation. Think about people in your current work or people that you've met that have really made a difference. And this is a great thing to keep, for people say, how do I keep someone top of mind? When you tag someone who's just did a post that you really appreciate and just say, you are true to this post. You are absolutely, this is who you are. That kind of thing goes so much further as a way to stay connected than just saying, hi, I'm just checking in with you this quarter because there's at least some context to it. I was able this morning to go to a retirement celebration online for someone, and it was phenomenal. And the thing that's so cool about online is we can see people from all over the country, and in fact all over the world, that came to kind of pay homage to this person. That person has definitely been tagged by a lot of people in her career. This was a moment to say congratulations. If someone just gets promoted and they're kind of on your list of people you want to keep up with, say congratulations because Those kinds of things keep you, again, top of mind. You're paying attention to what they're doing in their life. Um, your current employees that you work side by side with, your colleagues, make sure that you think of who really makes my job better? Who makes my job really exciting to come to each and every day? And make sure that you're telling these people how much you appreciate working with them. Because at one point, you'll work at different organizations. At one point, you won't be working side by side. But if you keep those connections alive and you tell people why you liked working with them, later on when you reach out to them as they've changed organizations and there's an opportunity that you want to reach out to them about an opportunity at their next organization, they're going to remember you in a very different way because you took time to say, you're pretty awesome. LinkedIn allows you to do recommendation letters. And again, another thing that you can do on behalf of someone that's done a work project with you or that just helped you with a huge sale, and you just write a recommendation letter, and when you're submitting that to LinkedIn, they see it before they post it. So they can say, "Oh, I really like this. Could you mention this? Because maybe you forgot something." Um, and so they have the ability to say, "Yes, I'll post it," or "No, I won't." But those things do matter because as people scroll through your LinkedIn and they see that you've offered letters and have received letters, that's usually a good sign that there's a solid person behind all of that. So think about taking a minute to put in writing why someone's a fabulous colleague. And always think about the people who have really rekindled that spark for you. These are people you have to say, wow, how do I remember those people? Start thinking about, especially as we're in the holiday season, such a perfect time to say thank you and show our appreciation. Think about the people throughout your career that really were this light for you. Who are they? How do you reach back to them? How do you give them an update of what you're doing? How do you help them know, I'm afraid, and as the new year opens, I'm going to have a open to work banner on my name within my LinkedIn profile. It is not looking good as we move forward toward the first quarter. Helping people kind of know where you are because that because it just again it's important to help people and to reach out to people that have really helped you before. Chances are they're going to be there for you again. And as always, it's my pleasure to help you with different ways to think about and ask, what are the processes? What do you do? How do you do it? And with that, let's go ahead and switch over to questions that you have. If you've made a big ask and it hasn't worked or it has worked, a lot of people want feedback on, wait, how do I do this? Ask away. How about that?
Love it. Yes, please, attendees, put any questions you might have for Diane in the Q&A of Zoom. But we've got a couple that we can kind of start with, and then I'm sure we'll see some more roll in. So Diane, can you talk to us a little bit about how, when you're going to make an ask of someone within an organization, how do you know the best person or the best level to ask? Do you ask
Mhm.
someone who seems close to your level? Do you try to go higher up because they might have more influence, but that's a little more scary? So how do you figure that out, like who to make your ask to?
That's a great question. Well, let's go ahead. Let's go back to LinkedIn. Are you connected to someone who's at maybe your level or one level above? There might be a connection there. And you reach out saying, I've noticed over the last year, I've been following your organization. Over the last year, I've noticed this role as an account consultant, as a prominent role, and there's been a number of openings. These last couple of months, as I've looked, that role is non existent. So what I'm trying to figure out is what's happened to that role within your organization. So you might go to someone who's at your level or a level up and you ask that question of them and they say, what we're doing is handling almost all of those internally. We've decided that it's really important for someone to understand our organization first to get into that consultancy role. So we are not posting that consultancy role out there for externals, we want to make sure we start with our internal. So that's why you've seen fewer of those. So again, and it's like that's helpful information for you. Okay, now what are some of the roles? Then you follow it up saying, all right, what are some of the roles I need to look at with my background as those entry points to your organization to set me up to do this consultancy role. And so those are the kinds of things I think is really important. Think about what you're looking for. It's helpful when people have been following an organization and saying, I'm seeing this role is missing. Help me know why. Or your job boards have been robust over the last few years, and right now there's nothing. Well, there's nothing for a lot of other reasons because the economy looks in a very different space right now. And so asking people, when do you expect things to open? Are you kind of projecting, we're going to kind of stay steady until the first quarter of 26? And at the end of the first quarter of 26, we're going to figure out if we're going to do some more hiring. Ask those kind of questions. And if the person you reached out to can't answer those, maybe you say, is there somebody else I need to speak to at your organization? And would you, and if you've impressed them by your questions and your homework, will you make the introduction? Chances are they will because you've done your homework ahead. But when people just say, just tell me where the jobs are, but like, and you haven't done any homework to know what's on their job board, shame on you. I'm like, no, that doesn't show that you're really invested in this at all. You're not doing good research. So do that. And then from there, if you've impressed that first level person, they might say, I want you to speak to my manager. And I will make that introduction and see if you can get 20 minutes. She's a Zoomer. She's like a Zoom call girl, and she will do it camera on 20 minutes. But you got to be ready. That's helpful for you because you'll do even better because you know what to expect to this next level. Does that help for an idea?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's great advice. Um, there's a question in the chat that's a little bit of a follow-up to that, or in the Q&A. If you do want to approach somebody who is higher level, and maybe you don't recommend doing that, but if it is something someone's thinking about doing, what's the best way to do that? Is that, how would you frame that question, or what's the best source? Like, do you email? Do you go through LinkedIn?
So I like LinkedIn. And so again, doing your homework against them help in the LinkedIn request when you ask to connect with them, tell them what you'd like. So again, when people do a LinkedIn request with no words, it's just the connect, 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 connect. It doesn't do anything for me. But when people do a message, I'm like, okay, why should I connect with you? And you might say, we're both alums of the University of Virginia. In addition to that, here's what I'd like. But again, what do we have a connection point somewhere? And if we do, or we both are affiliated with Forte, whatever the connection point is, that's always a great place to start. But then ask people what you're looking for with this connection. Because I like when people are transparent of saying, this is what I'm looking for. Or I've been following your organization, but I'm not seeing the same robustness in hiring. And I'd like some comments. I'd like to talk to you about that. And again, people might help you know you got to wait for at least the first quarter of 26, and it might even be the second. That gives you a good framework to know when you should start, get out there and look for something else. People are always asking me the $1 million question. Should I quit my job and spend my time doing full-time work, or should I stay working and then find work? Unfortunately, this market has not done what 2020 did when people lost their job and people were like, we don't ask any questions, we understand, we're moving forward. People are not being given that same grace in this period right now. And that's the most disappointing part of this job market for me. People are not permitting any grace. If people have lost their job, they're like, well, you couldn't have been any good if you lost your job. That's not what happened. I mean, just people have just lost their work, no fault of their own in these layoffs. The grace I saw in 2020 is not there right now. So unfortunately, I'm going to say stay with your job because I'm not seeing the grace I need for people to say, I got to walk away.
Yeah,
That's
the
my world right
tough
now. That's what I'm seeing.
tough time for
Mhm.
sure. Thank you for that advice, Diane. I think that's really helpful. Um, so as far as making those asks, let's say you reach out to someone on LinkedIn and you don't hear back for a couple weeks, and then you reach out again and they don't respond. How many times do you reach out and what cadence? What's
So
appropriate?
well, I wouldn't do it every week. So if you reach out and it's been a couple weeks and you haven't heard anything, reach back out like a month later. And if you haven't heard anything one more time, then try to go to another person within the organization because some people are not going to participate in this because they don't believe in it. But it's like it's a karma thing. So I always say when they don't do it, then when they need help later, they're not going to get the same karma they need. So if that's not working, try to reach out to someone else. And again, dig into your own network. Where do you have connections that are there at that organization? And just say, I've been trying to get through to Tony and I'm not getting lucky on that. Someone goes, oh, you don't realize she's on extended maternity leave. And so that's why you're not reaching back and you're not getting that outgoing message. Okay, that changes everything. So it's not you, it's something else that's going on. But after three times and you don't get anything, keep digging in for someone else. And then again, think about your question will probably look different because it's a different person, it's a
Hmm.
different timetable. But always know when you're looking to an organization about what their kind of hiring agenda is going to be, make sure you know what their job postings are on their own website. You can't go into a conversation about an organization not knowing what kind of jobs are posted.
A great point. And it's all out there
It is.
on
It's
the,
pretty transparent.
yeah. We have another question in the Q&A. So this person has asked their sponsor for future roles based on clear career aspirations.
Okay.
Um, how do they say no when the job is not the right fit without kind of hurting that relationship?
So a sponsor is kind of saying, here's what I see as your trajectory, but they're saying, okay, but no.
Yeah, but they want
Um,
to keep that relationship
mhm,
for so that those they keep sending them things, but
right.
they're waiting
And
for
so
the right one.
when I think it's important when someone sends you something to say, would review this, kind of take a look at this, and you're like, here's what this job wouldn't permit me to do that my current role will. And so sometimes it is, timing is off for me personally because of what's going on with my family situation right now. Or timing is off right now because I'm in the middle of a huge project that I want to see all the way through. I don't want to leave this undone. This is something that it's a pet project I finally got. I want to see this through. So, you approaching me about this job in 6 months, I would get excited about it. But right now, it's not the right time. Or when, sometimes people say, what about this? And I think it's important for you to look inside and say, I don't think that's my next job. I think that's like three steps up. I don't think that's a leap I can take right now from this role. Because sometimes people don't understand your background, and some people are saying that's way bigger than I can do, or way bigger than I want at the moment. And then right now, the biggest thing is when people say things, you got to dig in. Where's the role? Is it remote? What's the appetite for remote at that organization? And if someone's like, no, it's really in person, I'm like, okay, you got to know if it's in person, where is it? And are you willing to do that? And can you do that? All
Yes.
those things. Because it's not necessary. We're back to jobs are tied to places again.
Hmm.
So, and that a total change, but now that has changed our dynamic of how flexible can people be to make these moves.
Yes.
And
So
helping
true.
sponsors understand, I'm sorry, I've got to keep this in the metro Atlanta area, and here's my why.
Hmm.
Or a job that's remote at least 80% of the time.
Yes, I
Mhm.
totally agree. And this person followed up with um, the jobs being offered to them are lateral or even lower than the current role.
Okay. So that no, so laterals, sometimes a lateral gives you a different skill set. So people discount a lateral going, wait, no. Sometimes it'll give you a different skill set. So that's okay. But if it's a lower role, and usually the salary goes lower too, you're like, what am I going to gain doing that? And it's all the things I'm currently doing. So I'm not really going to move the way I think. One of my colleagues, I cannot take credit for this one, said the current job market is all more of a rock climbing than a ladder rung, because sometimes you have to move over, but you got to figure out what you don't have in your, kind of in your briefcase. What don't you have in your toolbox? And if you take a lateral move that will provide some of that, that'll be totally different. So maybe a lateral move gets you immersed in AI almost all the time. And right now you're doing it about 10% of the time and you really want to become an expert here. And that lateral gives you a full immersion. That might be a good lateral for you as an example.
A good point, for sure. Okay, I think we have time for one more.
Sure.
So this question says, do you have suggestions for someone who is kind of mid-career needing to pivot due to the changing market? And they're having a hard time getting people to see their skills as transferable to a different industry. And their resume doesn't match that new industry either. So any tips for this type of situation as far as networking or asks to make?
For transferability, you've got to be the storyteller on that one. And so often people, when they've been down this very left hand kind of path, and now they want to do a quick switch right, when they do that, people are like, but why? Because they just don't see it. So you've got to help people in the storytelling of, here's why, because of the marketplace, I'd like to pivot to this, and here is how I would translate my skills. Because go ahead, I always say the elephant in the room is the transferability of skills. Talk about it. Unfortunately, anymore, most employers are not reading cover letters, which I really hate because that's a place for you to talk about the transferability of skills. So, how do you give people enough in quick exchanges, email exchanges, that really help them understand how you would translate your skill set? Here's the solid foundation I have with my former role. Here is how I could translate what you're looking for based on what I've done before. And so it's like, how do you address what you know people are thinking? Because you know people are asking that question, going, "How will they do this?" And just come forward and talk about it. Anytime there's an elephant in the room or there's a gap in your employment, I always tell people, talk about it, put it out there. Because otherwise people make assumptions and that just never is good for anyone. So just say, there is a gap in my resume for 4 years. I took care of my aging parents. I had the grace to be able to do that. But now, as I come back to the workplace looks totally different. What I've been doing on the side is some AI work. And I think that's going to translate beautifully into what you want here. And if you don't have that background, I'm going to be able to come in with that foundation along with this, and this. Talk about the things that people might say, huh, and people's titles often don't display what they really did. And so I would say my working title would be more like X. Because sometimes people's titles don't say anything. And I'm like, but give me a working title then. Help me know what you did. And that helps, again, talk about what kind of experiences you have that you can build on for something else.
Incredible
Good
advice.
questions. Good
Yes.
questions. Yeah.
Yes. Unfortunately, we're out of time
There we
for
go.
questions.
Anyone that's on the call, as I tell people, connect with me on LinkedIn if you're saying, "Wait, I need some help on this one." I can't, make appointments with everybody, but I certainly can go back and forth in emails with you and LinkedIn, helping you with how do you make this ask, and again, writing a kind of an intro for someone and to pass along. Because if I'm asking Tony for a favor, if I do all the work behind the intro I want you to make, chances are you're going to take care of that for me. If you agree with what I wrote. If
Absolutely.
I'm way too much on what I wrote, you might say send that back and say try again. But if I'm honest with it and you believe in it, you're gonna copy and paste it and send it to the person that I'm asking for an intro to. And it really works beautifully. You got to, but you as the requester you've got to do the homework. Because the big ask back here, we got to do our homework behind it.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much, Diane. This has
You're
been
very welcome.
such a great session. I just want to touch on a couple
Uh-huh.
of upcoming events. So we have our leadership coach session approaching that is called How Career Sponsors Accelerate Your Success. So that's on December 2nd. You can register using this QR code that'll take you to the reg page. And then we have our Business Essentials Revolutionize Competitive Research with Gen AI Insights, and that is December 11th. Again, that QR code will take you there. And one final thing before we close out, Giving Tuesday is quickly approaching. This year, it will take place December 2nd. And as you consider your options to make a difference this year, just know that by donating to Forte, you can help increase representation in business schools and boardrooms around the globe. So please scan this QR code to learn more if you're interested in learning more. Thank you again to Diane for such an informative session. These are always so great. I always learn things too just by being here. So we appreciate you. And thank you to
You're
all of our
welcome.
attendees for joining for another great session. We hope to see you at future Forte programming, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Thank